Welcome back to Create, Share, Inspire podcast. I was thinking daily vlog in my head as I was saying podcast, so it kind of came out as a hybrid of both words. Whoops. Anyway, I'm Kristin Omdahl and welcome back. We are live in my studio this morning, picking up where we left off on a very interesting topic. So we started talking about craft as business, and today we're going to talk about craft as side hustle. But first, let's wait for people to show up from pre-chat and notifications and say hello to some people. I just finished sneezing, so if I sound a little stuffy, it's just because I sneezed. Hi, Grace and Joe, Donna, Lorraine, Val, Thea, Shell, Bell, Judy, Lily. Oh yeah, is it Wednesday? Happy hump day, everybody. Hi, Lily and Rita. Good morning. Yes, happy Wednesday, happy hump day. If you are wondering what I am wearing today, I am wearing the Sweet Clara cardigan. This one I made in Be So Sporty silver bling yarn. You can make any of the Be So Clara patterns. No, you can make any, what in the heck? You can make any of the Sweet Clara patterns in any of the number 2 sport weight yarns. So you could make it with Be So Soulful yarn, or you could make it with Be So Sporty, or you could make it with Be So Sporty silver bling, or Be So Sporty gold bling. It's one of the darker colors. I can't remember if it's smoke, night, midnight, something like that. It's one of those darker colors. The color name that I used is on the pattern, so you can see it there. Also, I do have dark colors in all of the sporty. So whether you're looking for sporty silver bling, I have a dark color called shale right now, and in sporty gold bling, I have a color called night, I believe. And then in Be So Sporty yarn, there's a couple of dark colors right now too. This one is midnight. Thanks, Judy. But whether you wanted to make it in Be So Sporty silver bling, or gold bling, I do have a dark color in all of those right now. So you could browse through all of the colors, and maybe you'd like to make it in a different color too. Don't have to necessarily make it in the same color I made it in, but if you wanted to, you can find any of the dark to gray to charcoal to black kind of color families in all of those yarns right now. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Let me see what that is going on. I'm getting a notification from something and I have no idea what it is. Anyway, we'll deal with that after the show. Hi, Mariana. Hi, Iris. Hi, Margaret. Good morning. Hi, Diane and Rinny. Hi, Donna. Good morning. Thank you, Iris. I love wearing a flower in my hair. I'm going for a haircut today. I do believe I'm cutting bangs. I think I'm decided that I do not like not having bangs anymore. And I think I got so far away from the original shape of my last haircut from all my trims that I gave up on it a few months ago and let them grow out. I need to get back to a good shape from someone professional, and then from there I will try to maintain again. And I've somehow got off track cutting the bottom of my hair today as well. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it. Thea's getting a haircut today too. Wonderful. So I bought a Groupon for a haircut for myself a couple months ago at the suggestion of a friend, and I bought 2 thinking I'd be greedy and have 2 discounted haircuts. And then I read the fine print after I bought them and realized that it's only good for one person. So I'm bringing someone for the second haircut today. Anyway, that's what happens when you get greedy sometimes. Hi, Donna. Thank you. Hi, good morning, Sarah. Okay, so it looks like we've got quite a few people here now. I wanted to wait to chat. Angela, I want to get to that point too. I feel like maybe my hair needs to get a little bit longer before I have the right amount of control for cutting in front of my head. When that day comes, I'm definitely only going to get a trim at the bottom. I definitely want to still grow my hair out some more. Krishani, do I sell my patterns on Etsy? No, I do not, but I am going to talk more about the business side of crochet and knitting today. Yesterday, I shared the ugly truth, the blunt truth of what I think about people wanting to get into the business of knitting and crochet. And I have a very strict distinction in my head between the business and the side hustle of the craft industry. And so yesterday I spoke very emphatically about the fact that asking yourself really hard questions before getting into the business side of things is really important, because the craft industry can be extremely challenging and extremely hard work because of the labor component of it. However, having said all of that, and if that is something that you're still interested in, I did give a lot of fun advice yesterday, a lot of valid advice for someone who's been a seasoned veteran in the industry for 19 years? No, I've been a professional in the craft industry for 16 years. I've been a professional for 16 years. That's about correct, because Marlon was 2 when we moved back to the US, and he's 18 now. Anyway, enough about that. The business side of knitting and crochet is something that's probably not for many people. It's something that's for a very limited number of people who are really willing to put in a lot of work to get it going and make a lot of sacrifices and what have you. Having said all that, I entered the industry under duress. So I was in a very, very delicate situation where I needed to hustle and needed to figure something out. But that's another conversation as well. What I think is the reason why so many people ask me questions about it is because they're really interested in the side hustle. Whether this would be something that applies to people that don't require this to be their main revenue source to pay their bills, or this is for people who already spend a ton of time crafting and enjoy the crafting so much, but they can only make so many things for themselves and the friends and family that can appreciate the work that they've put into the gifts. So if you end up falling in love with crafts, you end up coming up to this, I don't know, kind of brick wall where you're like, okay, I want to do this all the time, but what am I going to do with all the things that I have to show for it? So there comes a point when you have to ask yourself, I can only give away so much. I can only donate so much. What if I try to sell things? And having said that, people will always tell you when they see you crafting, you should sell your stuff. Yes, wouldn't that be great? But in order to do that, or let's see, where do I want to start with this? There's a couple of angles to come at it from. One is to justify the time and energy that you spend on your crafting with having some fulfilling end result, right? And besides just filling up a closet with garments and projects. So being able to justify the time that you spend is a really great reason to have the side hustle. The other thing is to figure out your pricing so that you can actually sell them. And I spoke a lot about labor cost yesterday, and what I want to tell you is the difference between the pricing that you would do for side hustle versus the pricing you would do for an actual business, to create a business, standalone business that supports itself, is that you don't need to pay as much attention to the labor cost. And you'll find there are a lot of blogs out there written about this. You can find information about it all over Pinterest, and they'll say, double or triple whatever your physical costs are for pricing. So let's say you spent $20 in yarn, you would double or triple that cost, and that would end up being the price that you sell your item for. Now, like I said, as a business, that doesn't cover your labor cost. But as a craft enthusiast and a hobbyist that wants to take the work, I've gotten distracted from the comment. I gotta stop reading the comments. Sorry. Anyway, where was I? Oh, it was good too. Hold on. Hi, G. May as well say hello. May as well say hello. That doesn't happen to me very often, does it? Where I completely lose my track. Um, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, as a craft enthusiast who wants to sell their work so that you can justify the time and energy that you're putting on it. Here's the thing, the labor cost, and no, you're not distracting me, G. It's fine. It was something else actually even. The labor cost is actually going to be called something else. Think about this. The labor cost could actually be labeled as something else if you're a craft enthusiast wanting to do a side hustle. And that is, it's the time you're already going to spend doing your hobby, the thing that you enjoy so much, the thing that is therapy for you, the thing that is your Zen time, the thing that is your personal self-care time. It can be called something else besides labor then. And if that's the case, and you're covering your costs and a little extra, you end up being the enabler for your own craft and covering the costs that you can continue making. And at the end of the day, you're helping other people too, because you're giving people these handmade items that they can't make themselves. So it ends up being a win-win all the way around if you can remove the labor cost out of it. It ends up being fun again. That's the other thing people will tell you, when you have something that you love and you turn it into a business, you can often suck the fun out of it because you have to look at it as a business and not as a passion anymore. So when you're doing something as a side hustle, you don't have to worry about it anymore. You don't have to worry about the same things, and you don't have to necessarily suck the fun out of the fun parts of it, like worrying about labor cost. Instead of worrying about how much time you get to enjoy your Zen, think about it. Labor cost, enjoy your Zen time. They're two completely different things. And I mean, it's mind-blowing, right? It's the same thing. It's how you describe knitting and crocheting and doing the things that you absolutely love to do, right? So then it comes down to, there's still all the other components that are involved in a business: marketing, photography, listings, and we can get to all that stuff. And as long as I can get off the table the difference between labor and Zen time, as long as I can get that off of my chest, then I can share with all of you all of the other tips for getting the word out there and getting your product to the customer. Well, Hot Rod Girl, yes, that's obviously very true. You have to enjoy what you're doing and then maybe sell the items you make. Yes, that's absolutely true. But what I was saying is the difference being, if you have to consider the labor cost. Someone's here from Egypt. Hi, Jihan. Where are you from in Egypt? I've been to Taba before. I have not made it all the way to Cairo, but I have been to Taba, Egypt before. I have pictures too. I've been saying I'm going to post them in social media one of these days, but I do have pictures of me in one of my favorite dresses of all time. Beautiful silk dress that I wore when I went to Egypt. I actually went to a casino in Taba. Anyway, so how do you guys feel about discussing the business side of knitting and crochet as a side hustle? Do you understand the difference of what I'm saying? How we can discuss it and discuss pricing without labor cost. And then we can talk about it as another expression as a crafter to be able to spend more time, just to be able to justify the time you spend on knitting and crochet, right? To be able to justify the time is nice for explaining to spouses or family or friends, and also justifying the cost then as well. The amount of money that you spend on crafting can be certainly justified to a spouse or a family member if you're talking about the fact, well, I'm getting the money back because I sell the things. Doesn't that sound wonderful too? Okay, and you know how nerdy and specific I am about wording. So I think for me, I had to really separate out business and side hustle to be able to get past the pricing to be able to talk about the rest. Does that make sense as well? Because it's so important to me that I don't misguide people and that I don't sugarcoat things. It's the opposite of me to sugarcoat things. I really want to make sure people understand exactly what you're getting into before you take my advice on anything. And that's why I'm so bluntly honest about things. So it's really important to me that I separate that out so that you can understand. I'm not going to be giving this advice based on making a living. This is based on supporting your craft, okay, and supporting your expenses for craft. Melissa says it makes sense. Great. Man, I sneezed so hard right before the show. I'm sorry. Yes, Sarah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Sarah has been thinking about selling her knitting and crochet projects as a side hustle. She would be happy to just make back the cost to buy more supplies since she enjoys it so much. Thank you for the info. Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So, having said all that, where do we start, right? I think the first place well, there's a couple of places you could start, and you probably have to juggle a couple of things at the same time. But if you're interested in it, it's fun. So people are talking about Etsy. Yes, Etsy is an option, and we will get to selling places, but I think we should start with, first of all, we had to start with pricing, and I do think that you can decide what, you can decide based on the item, you can decide based on, you could even consider a little bit about labor cost. I don't want to call it labor cost, the time it took you to make something. So let's say you, on a small thing like a hat, let's say you just want to double the price of the yarn, or let's say you just want to cover the cost of the yarn plus $10. Things like that. And another thing to consider is not just the cost of the yarn, the cost of all your supplies. Are you going to be putting your finished items into a shopping bag? Are you going to be wrapping them in tissue? Are you going to be wrapping it in a ribbon? Are you going to be putting a little sticker on it? And if these are things that you would like me to teach you as well, I've been doing all this for many, many years. I can show you how to get ribbon that has your name on it, or I can show you how to make little thank you stickers to put on your tissue paper. Do you want to just buy plain white tissue paper? Do you want it to be printed? Do you want it to be colored? Do you want to come up with a logo for your company? Do you want to even have a company? Do you want to make labels for your garments? Do you want to put labels on them? Do you want to sew them on? Do you want to snap them on? Like, there's so many things, right? How do you want to show, how do you want to display your products? And I don't just mean displays if you're going to do a show. Oh, the kitties are standing at the door. The door's cracked this much, and they're both staring at me through the glass going, why can't we come in? They can be so dense sometimes. Thank you, Hot Rod. I'm glad you love my top. I love my top too. I'm also wearing it under one of my favorite bodysuits. This is the short sleeve version of the bodysuit. I love these bodysuits in short sleeve and in tank top style, and I think they just so polished to have something so smoothly tucked into your pants. Okay, so like I was saying, how do you want to display your items? And I don't just mean if you're in a show, how do you want the customer to see the item? Let's say you're selling online. You may want to consider beautiful thought out packaging like I do. You may want to wrap stuff in tissue or or put stuff in organza bags. Do you want to add a handwritten note? And, those are the things that you would want to think about as well. Or would you be wanting to put a label on there? These are things that you would want to consider. I think some of it is overkill, to be honest with you, but I don't think that I would necessarily put a label on there. I think people might end up pulling it off, especially if it's not a brand that, unless it's Nike or some major brand. I think a lot of times people end up taking that stuff off. So you may want to consider skipping that. That's just, and sometimes those things are not as easy to wash. Are you going to add washing instructions? Are you going to include soap? Like, are you going to include information with your purchase. So these are all things to consider. And then whatever those printing costs are, those are all your costs. So it's more than just the cost of the ball of yarn. What else are you going to include when you ship something off to a customer? Are you going to give them free shipping? If you're going to give free shipping, you may want to consider absorbing some of that cost in your cost of the product. Okay, that aside, next up, if you're selling in person, this may not apply to you, but I'm sure most of you are considering how lovely it would be to be able to sell things online. What's the number one thing you're going to have to think about if you're going to sell online? Photography. We probably will do a whole show on giving you some tips and tricks that I have for photography, but in the meantime, I just want to say, go over photography briefly. Photography is extremely important. Just think about when you're looking for knitting and crochet patterns online. Doesn't photography make a difference to you? Does it help if someone has something on a real person versus a mannequin or just sitting flat on a table? Does it make a difference to you if there is great lighting, if there is poor lighting? Does it make a difference to you if the photo is in focus or if it's a little fuzzy? There are all kinds of quality of photos on the internet, right? Some people's photos are very professional, which comes at a cost as well, and that's something to consider. If you think your photography skills are horrible and you want to get all of your items professionally shot, that adds to the cost of what you would be charging for something, because the goal here is to cover our costs now. We're not talking about making a profit to put a roof over our head or buy food or support our families, but we are talking about covering our costs, right? So you want to make sure that whatever your costs are included. So I do not think that professional photography would be the way to go for selling your finished items, because I think it could get very expensive and you would be selling each item only one time. So you'd have to pay for professional photos for every single project. I think that could get pretty pricey. So I would put that on the back burner and only come back to that if you can't get your photos. But I'm going to tell you something right now. I've been doing photography for my business on my phone for many years. Now, you could say, well, you know what, Kristin, your photos aren't that professional. Okay, that's fine. I'm not saying I have the best photos out there. I'm not. But I think my photos are good enough for seeing the color of the project, for seeing how it fits on a human body, for seeing close-up details of the yarn and the stitch pattern. I'm not saying my photos are the quality of Vogue fashion magazine, but I am saying that my photos tell the story that they need to tell. And I can tell you, and I can share with you how to get my quality of photos with your cell phone based on a few really important tips. And we can go over that in separate blogs. We could go over podcasts. We could do separate videos. I could actually probably talk about it for quite a while. I've learned a lot over the years and I've got lots of great advice about it. Well, thank you for the compliments, you guys. I appreciate it. I'm proud of my photography as well. I'm not saying that my photos are bad. I'm just saying that to a professional photographer, I know that they would say that my photos are not professional. But having said that, we're talking about me teaching my advice for people that wanting to do a side hustle. My photo quality is perfectly acceptable for that. So that's where I think that I could really help you. And I don't think that you necessarily need a model, and I don't think that you necessarily need professional equipment. I can give you some tips and tricks. My first tip that I'll tell you, since we're going to run out of time here this morning, natural lighting. Anytime you can get close to a window, get outside, natural lighting is key. I have an iPhone, Rita. I have the 11 Pro right now, but I have to tell you, I've been doing my own professional photography for years on my iPhone. So it hasn't just been with this phone. It's been with whichever iPhone I've had all along. So iPhone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way through 11 Pro. I've been doing it with my iPhone the whole time. So if you go back 5 years on my website, those photos were taken with a 5-year-old iPhone, right? Thank you, Lizzie. Yes, We will talk about pattern publishing as well, and my tips for wanting to get your name out there for being a pattern writer also. We talked a little bit about that yesterday, about the fact that if you feel like the tree in the forest, get your name out there with larger companies. Try to do design work for magazines and book publishers and big websites. I think that's a great place to start to get your exposure. Lily, all your family photos are with iPhone. Yeah, I love the phone. But see, the phone isn't the key. The key is knowing how to take good photos, right? You can take good photos with any camera. You need to know about lighting and composition and things like that. And those are things that we can get to. But what I will focus on here is how to photograph projects and garments, because we're not talking about fashion photography here. We're not talking about trying to get the model in the right light. We're talking about trying to focus on the garment and getting the stitch pattern right and getting focus on, so it's a different type of photography. But photography is important. Marketing is important. So once you have the photography down, and like I said, we can get to that in more detail in another episode, then it's about getting the word out there. And, there's lots of websites that are free. I mean, yes, Etsy is a thing. Ravelry is a thing. Having your own website is a thing, but those cost money, and then we have to cover those costs and what we're going to sell things for. How about just doing good old-fashioned free advertising, word of mouth, Facebook, Instagram, whatever social media you're already on, just put the word out there. What about just saying, hey, I'm selling things. Hey, I got things for sale. Hey, look at all these photos of things that I've made. Would anybody like that? And hey, friends, can you share my post? Think about the friends that you have that are in businesses. You can apply all of those business rules to your own side hustle, right? Hey, how about going live on Facebook and showing people what you have and saying, these are the prices. Email me. You don't have to have a shopping cart to sell things. Tell people what you're doing. Tell them what the prices are. Tell them to Venmo you the money. Tell them to PayPal you the money. Zelle you the money. You can figure this out. Like, you don't need a website and a shopping cart to do this. You don't have to pay Etsy. You know people, right? You can start with who you know. Start with what you know. Is it hard to sell patterns when there are so many patterns available for free? Of course it is. It's hard to sell patterns when there's lots of patterns for sale, and it's hard to sell patterns when there's patterns that are free. Here's what sets you apart. Quality, right? Quality and price, but you want to give the best quality experience you can for your customers, whether that's making things in large font to make them very readable, adding charts to get that secondary style of learning with your written instructions, adding video supplements making something a more well-rounded experience and a better teaching experience actually sets you apart from your competition. Making things in larger font, making things easier to read, having things tested so that there are minimal mistakes and typos. Granted, we're human beings, and that's a thing, and there's always going to be an element of mistakes when you're talking about human beings, but that's just the way it goes. What you want to do is make sure that you eliminate the most of that you can. So quality and user experience. So those things, so setting yourself apart from the competition is always a good idea, but then it's getting the word out, and you can still have the best written patterns in the world, and you can have the most beautiful designs in the world, but if nobody knows about it, they're not finding out about it. So it's still getting the word out. And how we would talk about marketing patterns is different than how we would talk about marketing finished items, because it's a completely different market, right? You're talking about crafters versus consumers that consume wearables. Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Beth. I appreciate it. I try. I'm glad it's helpful, Sarah. Yeah, so I think that we'll continue talking about this because I feel like everybody's still very interested. So we can talk either more about photography tomorrow, or we can move on to some of the marketing ideas, starting with word of mouth. I mean, you could email all your friends. Just email everybody and say, hey, if you know anybody, will you share this email with these photos to other people? Get on the phone, text your friends, show them photos in text. You don't have to have a shopping setup to do this. Just start telling people, and if honestly, they can send you checks in the mail, right? There is no, I mean, there are all kinds of ways that you can do the transaction, and we can come to that another day, but it's about getting the word out there and finding out who wants your stuff first. Let's see. I love all your patterns and love your photos. Thank you. It helps to hear from someone that uses their phone, helps it to be more affordable for selling. Yes. Um, yes, Angela. Hopefully you attract people who love quality and beautiful items. Yes. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Patricia. You too. Yes, we are out of time. All right, so we will continue this conversation maybe tomorrow even. If you have questions specifically about anything I talked about today, leave them in the comments. If you have specific requests of which part of this discussion we talk about tomorrow, whether it's different types of media, different types of selling, how to get the word out to other people, or if you want to talk more about packaging or photography, let me know what you want to talk about next. There's a lot to discuss discuss the side hustle of knitting and crochet, but I would definitely love to continue sharing my experience with all of you, because I think it is a great way to expand on your crafting experience, to be able to sell your items and have that money to spend more money on yarn, and to be able to validate all that time that you want to spend knitting and crochet. That's also so good for your mind, body, soul experience, and so good for your mental health. So I mean, it's a win-win all the way around. So let's talk about it more. Just let me know which little avenue you want me to take next, or let me know what's most important to you, or if you have specific questions about your side hustle, ask them, because chances are whatever your questions are, someone else has them too. And then after we get through all of that, we can dive into how to make a proposal for design work, or how to sell things on Etsy, or how to do things live on different social media, or all of it. I'm happy to discuss all of it and any of it with you. So thank you all so much for taking time out of your busy day to spend a few minutes here with me. I hope you enjoyed our discussion. I hope you enjoyed chatting with me and everyone else here. Thanks for all the questions. I appreciate you all so much. Let us make time to create, share, and inspire today and every day. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same place. Bye-bye.